Well, hello there, all beautiful brothers, most beautiful brothers. The most beautiful imagination. I am the Dark Shadow Maverick. The Dark Shadow the Maverick. The Dark Shadow Maverick. And this is part 2 of What If Tails Saw Something and It Changed Him. Yes, that's right, part 2. Last part, well, we saw the preceding events of, the death of the rookie, question mark. Tells us finding out about the original purpose of the androids. And, well, kind of hijacking all of Eggman's shit. And, well, some preceding events, well, having to do with the Black Arms, even though that shouldn't even be possible, considering that this is all following the events of Sonic Forces. And even some other things, which, well, we'll get onto that later. Now, let's get on to part 2. You know, Tails would have just gone out to, well, have a drink, you know, a simple drink. And, you know, a little tavern, you know, nothing too much for him. I mean, considering what he's doing and all. As, well, someone would spot him. Someone he probably would not want to spot him right now. Tails! Basically, Tails would look over and see Sonic. Yeah, definitely he did not want someone to see him right now. Sonic would begin to pry for answers on the whole wanted poster things, you know, that. With Tails simply replying that, wait, you didn't know that was a joke? Wait, were those sent somewhere else besides there? With Tails simply replying with, apricot and paper cut. I don't even know why I still pay you guys. You can't even do your damn jobs. Yes, it seems that 2 of the Tails androids, named Apricorn and Papercut, well, they seem to have been, you know, sending out certain, well, you know, that upon further inspection, Sonic does indeed realize they're kind of really fake and really stupid looking. So the fact that it really surprised him at all, well, these posters, well, weren't even, like, made official. They didn't even have a seal on them or anything. And they were actually very poorly made as well. And sent out to basically whoever. Basically cementing this as, well, Tails just making a joke. Considering, well, things and how they have been recently. With Sonic basically just stating that, you know, he really doesn't like what Tails is doing and that he should stop while he still can. Tails basically just stating, what, you don't like the fact that I'm finally being a competent ruler? That I'm finally beginning to be able to do the thing that I've always wanted to do ever since I met you? You know, be like you? Actually be somebody? I always thought of the whole thing, believing in myself every single day. And I only began to, really improve on that whenever I finally found you. You gave me hope. You gave me actual hope that I could be better than myself. And now I find out that you don't want me to do that at all? Some friend you are. Besides, you didn't even seem to care whenever I was really petrified by that, monster, the Time Eater. And let me guess, you only seem to make everyone think you cared whenever I was supposedly roboticized by the Zeti. That didn't even actually happen. I had managed to successfully free myself, only enough so that it seemed that I was captured. You probably weren't actually even really concerned, were you? Oh, but what, good use is that for you, Sonic? No, not good use for you at all. All you care about is you. And any thoughts otherwise are just mere shallow mirrors of thoughts that could have been. The Sonic the Hedgehog that I once thought I believed to know is no longer alive. You're just all for show. All for the fame of the moment. And so, you wanting me to stop doing this just proves it even more. So yeah, I have something for you. Go to hell. So you just little smoke pellets as he would disappear. And Sonic, really feeling, not really even knowing what to feel right now. Considering, Tails just literally gave him the proverbial, verbal smackdown right now. And now with the very village in which Tails was originally born into, well, Tails, only really stopping by there to see if anything had actually really changed. And it seems that the apple hasn't really fallen far from the tree. Considering, well, no one, basically could really say that anything had changed without being a liar or being misinformed. It seems. Because nothing has changed. Really, all that much. To the point in which, well, literally freaking Vietnam flashbacks for Tails here. He wanted to leave these memories behind, but he just had to go and check. His dumb luck, he guesses. However, well, it seems as if, some of his men are able to detect whenever he's in such states of, just overall depression and suppressed emotions coming out in full. And so Tails' doll, they decided basically to send a beacon out to one of the specific forces of Tails' army, the Black Tails. Basically saying, to stop the whole bullshit, but to really don't kill anyone. Unless it's absolutely necessary. Well, made absolutely necessary. More like it. And so that is exactly what happens. A beacon is sent out, and, well, some Tails arms, are sent out through the beacon. And so after everyone is basically parted like the Red Sea, all the basically Tails arms basically take their lord and, well, get back up the beacon, before anyone could say "Ay caramba." And, well, just after all of that, a very stressful day indeed. Tails just in his quarters, just really not knowing what to think about life right now. Nothing has changed in his old village. His friends hate him now for literally speaking the truth. His friends can't seem to, see the truth laid bare in front of them. Or just either they choose not to see it. Well, either way, it's pretty shitty for Tails. And that is until someone does indeed decide to enter his quarters after, well, knocking and Tails telling them that they can enter. This specific person being the general of the army, well, the specific army, this person being Clawmonger. Along with the two other, highest positions being, well, Major General and Sergeant General of, their forces. The Major General being, Tails' doll, and the Sergeant General being, well, they're newly acquired, straight from off of Jackal Squad himself, and given even new, better armor, their new Infinite, or Infinite X2. Being their Sergeant General. And so, with the three top positions of the army, revealed, it seems that the tippity toppest, the cream of the cropest, position, literal general of the army herself, being Clawmonger, she has decided to come in. As she has been authorized that she is able to by Tails. And oh boy, is there some explicit stuff going on, and can you feel the love tonight? Good thing Tails access the silencers, so that nobody can really hear them, but they can hear each other. Going all night and all through the early morning, like Kitsune and Neat. Which technically they are. For the moment. As until, a bunch of, and Tails basically been like, Orbot, Cubot, what the was that? Orbot and Cubot basically just being like, Master, I think it's better if we show you a visual. And Tails just being like, well then get the freaking visual up, damn it. And then Orbot and Cubot just being like, yes sir. And then Tails just seeing a visual of, well, Sonic, Shadow, and Silver racing towards freaking, what is now known as the Tails Carrier. They've just mainly dispatched, specific ships of the fleet in order for them to get there faster. Tails just groaning and being like, ugh. For real, guys? You're really gonna have me do this? Orbot, Cubot, send a message to our Major General and Sergeant General. Our Major General will meet Silver, and our Sergeant General will meet Shadow. And Clawmongerer being like, well, what about me, Tailsy-kun? And basically Tails just being like, well, you, Major, basically, well, you, General of the Army. I think I can hold back some of my more harsh grudges against Sonic for now. Give you something to do. Right, my Clawsy-kun? More like Clawsy-chan. And so, yeah, basically, you got that right, guys. First up, Tails Doll versus Silver. With, Silver really not able to do much besides, the normal, rolls, like spin attack, homing attack, basic things. And, his psychic attacks, which aren't really all that much. Whenever considering who he's fighting. Basically, the fight really just ends up being, well, a knockout drag out with no real victor. And as for Shadow versus Infinite, X2, well, oh boy. It seems as if, this was going to just be a repeat of their previous fight, in Sonic Forces, where Shadow just kicked his ass. That's until the Black Bull just freaking coming like a wrecking ball on top of Shadow, giving Infinite enough room to catch the W. And basically they're just being a little speaker thing, telling Infinite X2 that, well, he thought that might happen, so he sent the Black Bull over to give Infinite a moment to get the W over Shadow. Seeing as he's the kind ruler that he is, Tails. And, well, Tails decided, Orbot, Cubot, give me a visual on Clawmonger's fight with you-know-who. Not even wanting to say Sonic's name out of just how pissed he is. And, well, they're just like, visual given. Boom. And, it's just like, Sonic is like, I don't know who you are, but I don't care. Let me at Tails. And, Clawmonger just being like, Clawmonger, I see you too, shithead. Just sharpening her claws like Wolverine, like, Ching, ching. Just, General of the Army, highest position granted. Besides leader himself. And basically, Sonic, throws everything he has at her. But, Clawmonger with her, like immense amount of training and potential, manages to just enough outdo Sonic. And Sonic is actually floored by this, He wasn't expecting to get, this bad, this much of a challenge. To the point in which he almost falls off the Tails carrier. And then basically, Clawmonger just pulling him back up, and, Sonic just being like, "You saved me?" And, Tailsmonger just pulling a, Slade moment, from the freaking thing, like Teen Titans, and just being like, "No, I just wanted to kick your ass some more." And just proceeding to do so. Until finally, she just, throws him up and kicks him off. Literally punt kicks him in the head whenever it reaches that height. Throws up, and head, punt kick. Straight off the damn Tails carrier. Smashing through several levels of, freaking, ship. And just overall just being wiped out. And Silver just flying over using his, psychic powers to catch Sonic. And, Shadow just meeting them in the middle and using Chaos Control to get them the frick out of there. With, Clawmonger just being like, "Sir, awaiting further orders, my lord." And basically, Tails giving the further orders, seeing as, Tails Doll and, Infinite are in the condition they're in. Infinite not really, fatally wounded, but not really all that, up and ready for battle either. And, Tails Doll the way Tails Doll is, the gym, not just, any gym, but literally going black. That's how bad it got. To the point where Tails is just like, "Oh, I've had enough of this shit." And Tails is just to the point of "Clawmonger, let hell sing." And basically, Clawmonger just gets to the Black Bull and hops on top of it. And, they just descend down upon, the populace of wherever the hell, Sonic, Shadow, and Silver are going to land. And they end up basically landing within, Westopolis, where it all began. With Tails sending, some reinforcements. In the form of, oh boy. For, if the three of them thought, Tails was going to play fair, they were sort of mistaken. As the tentacles that were originally intended to, suck the resources out of the earth, just got used to smack the three of them out of the sky. And landing unceremoniously down to the ground. Silver unconscious, as usual. And Shadow barely clinging on to life. seeing as just how hard he got hit and hit into the ground to boot. And Sonic, well, already exhausted from their previous fight, and Clawmonger now down on the ground with the Black Bull literally riding on the damn thing. And literally just like on command, being able to achieve a Devil Doom form of its own. And that's whenever she basically just, like, Clawmonger just basically hops off and, just creates some electromagnetic whips from her hands. This will be like a phase 2 fight. And Sonic will just be like, the hell with this. And he decides to, go even further into his arsenal by activating Wisp powers to combat, the electromagnetic whips. However, with the Black Bull also fighting with her and having it achieve basically its own Devil Doom-like form, it's not really being any easier for Sonic. Constantly having to use, like, drill, missile, and laser to, like, get anywhere. Though, usually, like, the Devil Bull form thing blocking most of the attacks, if not all of them. And any of the ones that get mostly close to Clawmonger are just getting batted away by the whips. And to the point where Sonic doesn't have any more Wisp power on him. And, Clawmonger just getting to the point where she's just like, I grow tired of this, Hedgehog. It's time that I show you the power of us. And she would just say, ram him. And then behind Sonic, the Devil Bull would just ram straight into him from behind, causing him to literally, like, bang, right back onto the ground from, like, I don't know how many feet up in the air. And basically, Clawmonger would just hop onto the Devil Bull, and she would just be like, good. Now, as she would just recede her electromagnetic whips, and the Devil Bull will go back into its regular form. As she would just cause, the Black Bull to spin, and she would kick off from, like, the spinning Black Bull, sending it careening towards Sonic, and just as soon as the dude would get back up, he would get hit, bang, and just land on his back. And, then she would create her whips again, wrap them around the, Black Bull, and cause it to spin again, and then pull the whips in, causing it to hit Sonic again, but it would have electric power on it now, and hit him even harder. Yeah, as you can tell, Clawmonger is not one to F around and find out. She is definitely the more ruthless kind of person. Yeah, figures she would be given the position of General of the Army, being a more ruthless person. Definitely given the position. Also, because Tails likey. Yeah. Clawmonger isn't just given the position because, likes to F around and find out. No. She is given the position because she's a bad bitch. Like, I'm talking Integra, like, Bella Laika bad bitch. She will not F around and find out. She will get to the point and then just start kicking your ass. Like it's nothing. Like it's nobody's business but hers and hers alone. And Sonic will just be like, what kind of point is Tails trying to prove by doing this? And, Clawmonger will just be like, Tails isn't the one doing this. I am. Now, as for you, I grew bored of these games. Sonic the Hedgehog. And Sonic would just be like, and so do I. Sonic Wind. And Clawmonger would just be like, wait, what? Bang! And, just kind of knock her on her ass. And then turn around and pull one on the Black Bull straight in the face. And, try to just beat the shit out of the Black Bull while Clawmonger was down. And, that proved to actually be a very bad idea because, don't take your eyes off your opponent, asshole. Proving this by basically, latching on to Sonic, dragging him down with her, all the way down to the ground, like reverse Batista bomb style. All the way in basically making the ground crack from the force and the pressure of the overall, smashing into the ground of the attack. Reverse grip Batista bomb. On Sonic all the way down to the ground. And Clawmonger would know that the Black Bull would still be alive because, they've been doing some stuff to ensure that the Black Bull wasn't nearly as weak as it was before in Black Doom's care. If you could call that care at all. So, yeah, basically, whole thing will... Clawmonger would have had enough of this. Proving said point by, basically throwing Sonic up into the air, jumping up at him, grabbing him, putting him in a pile driver hold as she would basically go all the way down like Red Cyclone, like freaking Zangief, and just smash, like literally breaking the dude's neck. And, just dragging him by, the scruff of his neck. All the way, wherever she was going to drag him. The Black Bull just following her from behind. And, she would have really, taken, one of the whips from her other hand and wrap it around Sonic as she was falling. So, dude would be still electrocuted, like he would be frying as she was dragging him. And, just eventually finding a high enough building to do this. And, she would look from her vantage point eventually whenever she got up there. Finally releasing her whip, stop shocking Sonic. Like the frickin' Nashville Chicken or whatever. people would just see from the highest building someone just, like, Clawmonger would remove a little, piece, a little contraption from her wrist, and it would fold out to show that it was actually a lot longer than, what originally would have been thought, and that it actually contained a secret little item, that being a sword. And, well, basically, Clawmonger would basically just press Sonic up to the top of the building, and, well, somewhere there, and basically would just have the sword and, go all freaking Eisen fake death style on Sonic. And then would just kick off, backwards jump all the way to on top of the Black Bull. Actually, she would just ride off. Straight back to base. And, when eventually morning hit, the area of Westopolis, they would see on top of their highest building, well, not really on top, but, on their highest building, basically, the body of a dead Sonic the Hedgehog. Basically a statement, saying that whoever dares try and ruin their true peace will indeed, get this treatment. Like, they want to go, peaceful, like the peaceful route. Be, basically. But if they're pressed to do so, they will indeed, fight with force. They're basically stating that if they have to, they will fight with force. However, that seems to be the case, but then, there's another body along with Clawmonger. But wait, that doesn't make any sense. There was only one body. And basically, Clawmonger would bring this body in front of Tails and basically be like, shatter. And Sonic would just drop to the ground of the entire thing and be like, what the hell was that? And Clawmonger would be like, Sonic the Hedgehog, you poor fool. My Black Tails generals, would you please take this pathetic excuse for a hedgehog to a proper holding cell for a type such as his, and his alone? And, Black Arms, would just grab Sonic, really not all that, in a shape enough to, fight for his own safety. So he would just be, like, pulled in, basically left to, like, rot in a holding cell. Or whatever the plan secretly was for him. That, they all had for him, secretly or whatever. Whatevs. And Tails just being like, so I take it the plan went successfully. And Clawmonger just like, they all don't know a thing. Except for what I've allowed them to believe. And Tails will just be like, Clawmonger, your ability to excel in the abilities of the illusionary arts, even without the power of the Phantom Ruby, surprises me to no end. That is, if I had anything to be surprised about to begin with. You know how I am. Anything you guys already know is something I've already taught you, and which would mean I would already know and excel at it even greater than you. But it's nothing to be sad about. It's just a fact of life. Yeah, so apparently Tails also knows how to do that. Literally like Kyoko, so he gets you the frick out of everybody. And so yeah, Sonic isn't actually dead. You know, he's been left to rot in a freaking holding cell inside of, you know, the Tails carrier. And for what reason? Well, nobody knows for now. However, everybody else, not knowing about this, thinks Sonic is dead. You know, they all think Sonic is dead. And, you know, Tails really not, you know, giving a shit about anybody's approval, you know, of, you know, people he used to consider friends. Not really giving a shit about their approval anymore. You know, just, you know, doing his own thing now. Seeing as nobody seems to, you know, give a shit about, you know, him, you know, really just giving him the shaft. He's decided, you know, he's gonna take a more, can't really say direct, but not really say indirect approach to things. So yeah, about that. Well, because of basically what Amy witnessed, being around Westopolis at the time of the whole fight, Amy just goes straight to storm right at the base and gets captured. In a holding cell, you know, just because Tails wanted to be a dick, a cell, you know, that would have her facing Sonic, you know, a cell right across from him, so that they'd be facing each other. Amy just realizing how much of a mistake she had just made, and that Sonic was actually still alive, but, you know, not any better than she was, really. Infinite X2 being told to not go easy on her in the slightest, regardless if she was a girl or not. That if she wanted to do this to herself, that, you know, they shouldn't hold back in the slightest, that they should go all in on this. That it was her own fault if she got, you know, this done to her. It was her own fault and nothing else. And, you know, with Amy just, you know, realizing the shape that Sonic's in, and that the only, like, medical equipment on him is just to keep him alive, you know, keep him from dying. And, you know, Amy not really all that much better. She just starts to bawl her eyes out. You know, praying for Sonic, you know, to get better soon so that they can get out of there. And, you know, soon realizing that that's not going to happen. That they did this to themselves. The entire raid on the whole Tails carrier now, that entire thing was a bust from the very beginning. That they did this to themselves. Tails was right. They did this to themselves. was all their fault. That they couldn't see the reasoning besides what Tails was doing. And because of that, well, they ended up suffering. What he had always been trying to do ever since that day. I think he had truly figured out his true family. And that Amy had just now figured out that they were pretty much going to be suffering for the rest of their lives, however long they lived inside these, cells. Or at least that's what she believed. That is until some Black Arms came into her cell, and just like with the Black Arms that decided to come into Sonic's cell, well, for different reasons, Amy not really able to tell why they came into Sonic's cell, because before she was able to say anything, she was knocked out, unchained, and, well, taken to somewhere else. Now that Tails finally thought he knew what to do with her. And as for Sonic, well, more or less the same, but different things. Amy waking up to, well, a room that more or less she felt suited her. Just not her room, but more or less, if she was to live somewhere else, this probably would be a room that she felt would suit her. And that it was actually a lot bigger than what she originally thought it would be. Still basically seeing signs everywhere that would, convey that this was still one of Tails' things. Though the overall feel of the place, told her that it was not a part of the Tails fleet, or Tails carrier in general. This was actually more of a ground base. Whether it was overground or underground, she couldn't really tell, but she definitely knew it was not part of either the fleet or the carrier. That this was some sort of, like how Eggman did, making his own bases. This was basically the same, more or less. Only it was a Tails base. As, he had basically been, done all of Eggman shit, just in his way now. So, and more or less this was a sense of a room inside of a Tails base. Which one, Amy didn't know, but at this point she didn't really seem to care. All she knew was that for some reason they gave her this really nice room. Was it to distract her from the fact that she was technically still a prisoner? That is until she hears a voice. A voice asking her, when does a home become a complex? Amy basically, coming to a belief that, well, this place is only really a prison if she believes it to be. Almost sounds like a semi-pseudo, like, Stockholm Syndrome. Literally coming to the belief that this is only really a prison as much as she makes it out to be. Seeing, as basically everything about the room is to make it as if she's living in a place that she should feel comfortable in. So really, Amy feels that she's only making it out to be the way she's making it out to be because, well, reasons. And that, she should be able to find this place as much of a home as she wants it to be. And that, this place is only seeming to be not a home because, of reasons. And so Amy just feels like, well, if that's so, then I guess, like she guesses, well, maybe if she just tries hard enough to make it out to be a home instead of a complex, that she can do that and feel that way. And so eventually, trying hard enough, she begins to fall asleep and see something of a strange, almost angel-like figure, telling her to cry out, and that eventually someone will hear her. And eventually, whenever Amy does try to cry out, or whatever that technically meant, to the angel or to her, she awakens to find that she doesn't nearly feel as trapped as she did feel before, and that she feels happy even. That this does no longer feel like a complex, it does indeed feel like a home. Though the one thing she still does worry about is, well, how Sonic is doing. And now we basically cut to a scene where basically there is an outside camera giving a view of Amy's room and Amy inside said room. Clawmonger basically looking over it, talking to Tails, basically saying Project Angel Dust has been a success. Now about Project Broken Hero. Well, we'll just have to see how that, pans out. And then we basically cut to Sonic waking up and, well, what he could only perceive to be a room made for him, like tailor-made for him, having a lot of space to do a lot of running and other things that he would want to do, even an area where, wait, is that the smell of chili dogs? And you can even see chili dogs. They seem freshly made. He wonders if this has any poison in it, though, or some sort of sleeping agent. Then again, he did just wake up, so that would kind of seem like pointless, counterproductive on their part, whatever they were trying to do. These people that apparently captured him and took him to an entirely new location, which, from what he could tell, must not be like in an air location. It had to be somewhere ground, but overground or underground, he really couldn't tell. That part, at least, he really couldn't tell. So he decided, caution be damned, eat the damn chili dog. Or chili dogs, considering that there were multiple there. All hot and ready to be eaten. Sonic finding that these chili dogs were amazing. These chili dogs were fantastic. And that, for as long as he could remember, well, he had all sorts of things to do in this big room. The room that, for all intents and purposes, if they were wanting to make him feel like a prisoner, shouldn't nearly be as big as it was, or is, technically. It's way bigger than technically what a prison room would be considered, supposed to be. More or less, he felt really, actually, very comfortable, regardless if this was actually a prison or not. And hearing the words, when is a home considered a complex? And the same thing with the angel, and Sonic having to come to terms whether it was a home or a complex. Sonic being different than Amy, though, well, feels like he should be more arguing with said angel than actually accepting of said words being spoken by said angel. Like, really, was this a home or was this a complex? Like, to the point where Sonic didn't even know. To where it almost felt like a battle in between himself and his own thoughts. And eventually, Sonic felt this increasing pain within his own head. And he would have kept on hearing the same words that he heard before he met the angel. And in his mind, cry out, cry out, cry out. Sonic refusing to do this, only making the sound of the voice louder. Cry out, cry out, cry out. Sonic eventually hating the voice, just wanting it to stop, eventually does cry out. He couldn't bear the pain any longer. Sonic the Hedgehog, this unstoppable force for good, he gave up on trying to fight it. He cried out and accepted the face of the angel as a sort of face of his own. Eventually realizing that whenever he woke up, there were no chili dogs. There had been no chili dogs for quite a while, actually. He had been going in and out of sleep, and he had realized all the times that he had went in and out of sleep, they weren't supplying him with chili dogs anymore. They eventually, stopped supplying him. However, he just now realized something, the smell was coming back. More chili dogs. Almost as if he was being rewarded for crying out. That crying out was a good thing. That he was being rewarded for doing a good thing. And eventually Sonic just decided, well, maybe he should cry out. Began to hear giggles. What sounded like Amy giggling across from him. Maybe she had cried out. Maybe she was finally happy here too. Clawmonger in a separate room. Leader, the experiments were a success. Both of them. I can't believe it. Both of the experiments were a success. With Tails just looking at, Clawmonger, well, with a look of confusion. Well, not really so confused as, Amy's experiment being a success. More confused that Sonic's was a success. He thought he would fight it more. The urge to cry out. He thought, Sonic being who Sonic was, and how Sonic would be forever and always, that he would never cry out. That he would just eventually die from starvation. That they would only really start feeding him chili dogs again if he cried out. And cried out he did. Not really from wanting chili dogs, but more or less from the same experiment that they were putting Amy under. Only under certain other circumstances. For they were both to cry out eventually. Or at least Tails was prepared to, do the deed himself should, Sonic not, fold in the end. And do exactly what the angel would be telling them both to do. To cry out. For this finally to be their homes. Where they would be where they would stay. Although they were different in many ways, Tails couldn't help but think, well, this is where they belonged. For siding against him, for threatening his utopian empire of two tails. His utopian society, his utopian empire of two tails. And that's whenever eventually the voices would come over the intercom. Eventual people that, Tails had recruited from this other world that had faced some sort of ultimate cataclysmic event, ending their own world, dropping them here. Tails' own genius had allowed him to outwit them, even with their most maximum, most superb of technology, they could not defeat him. And so they were, well, reluctant, but eventually decided to side with him. These people of a secret foundation used to, well, keep the more unsatisfactory of things from being reached out to the public. A secret organization used to hide things from the public in order to keep them safe. Tails, believing that he could use this, power and technology and, well, mind, well, to, satisfy more of his needs, satisfy more of his, things in his life. This little double experiment of his that he was trying out being one of them. As he would start testing, his new testing, seeing as both Amy and Sonic had proven to be, well, successful in the initial testing, he would start their true tests, tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow. Not a week from now, as they had originally suggested. No. Those Foundation members, they were too cautious. Not enough to throw themselves at it like true members of his society. True members who were not afraid, but knew they would prevail, no matter what. Rather, truly confident in their abilities. And their absolute minds and hearts of minds, that, and their hopes knew that this would succeed. Amy and her little fashioned little thing of hers, in which she had gotten quite comfortable, would basically hear a voice over a loudspeaker telling him that, testing was to begin shortly. Testing over what, though, she couldn't really tell. As until the numbers were spoken. 0, 5, 3. And that, to be careful, although this one would seem relatively harmless, she'd actually do much harm if not, well, dealt with properly. Even though Tails is not, super specific, he believed that Amy, Amy's seeing this little girl come into our room, this little human girl with a little sundress. The scientists on the other side, with tails, saying that it had been past the 10-minute mark, and this Miss Rose person that Tails had spoken to them about being put onto this experiment was seemingly not doing anything that they had seen the others do whenever being around this 053 for over 10 minutes. She was still perfectly fine. Tails, well, he would just generally be like, I didn't expect anything less from Amy. It seems that, well, we'll have monthly checkups with 053 and Amy. They should satiate the curiosity and not make it so apparent 682's rampant, violent tendencies, as you called them. It should mellow things out. Rightfully so. Right, Dr. Bach? Dr. Clef? If I do indeed say so myself. As to where these two people known as Dr. Bach and Dr. Clef, Dr. Bach nearly scowling and scoffing at this person, calling themselves Tails, and Dr. Clef, for once, being speechless. Literally speechless at the actual calm and confidence of this fox, that everything would have seemingly gelled together perfectly, even with such an unpredictable entity as 682. And even this, Tails person proposing that they not be nearly as violent and barbaric with their experiments on the said immortal lizard. Or, as Dr. Clef put it, and, Tails not really approving of such, but not really denying either, death alligator. With Tails just being more like, well, I don't got really anything better to call, so I guess death alligator it is. I mean, that's the funnier sounding title out of the ones that were given. Dr. Bach's not really seeming all that, funny at all. So, well, just simply calling it a lizard, man, no creativity at all, Dr. Bach. However, Dr. Clef, well, not really all that, accurate in assumption. It does cause a lot of death, given certain, times. So, I guess death alligator it is. I mean, sheesh. Unkillable reptile? Really, Dr. Bach? All your creativity seems to have gone down into the bargain bin. At least Clef could make something that sounds fun. Clearly you can see that Tails has a more favored one out of the two here. Out of these two specific doctors. And well, as for Sonic, well, seeing as, even though he's been more accepting as of late, of his place here, there's still some, tensions, that have fallen, neither risen or fallen. So, you know, even though, this whatever council had strongly advised against it, well, whatever members of them were still alive, anyways, after the cataclysmic event befallen their world, basically Tales saying that made him overrule them overall in general, seeing as he didn't join them, they joined him. So he had overall power regardless. And, well, he wasn't all that mean. He just, knew who was on top and who was on the bottom. And decided to do with that what he would. And he, did exactly that. And, well, so, that experiment that he wanted to try, he tried. With basically a voice going over an intercom into Sonic's room, telling him that the experiment would begin now. Experiment 999. Sonic were not really knowing what this 999 was, though, well, from some cooing sounds and some, apparently a live orange blob that's sliding over closer towards him. And wait, is it trying to tickle him? Tickle me? Like, what the hell? Sonic feeling weird from the touch. Not really, giggling, but still feeling the general overall sense of euphoria most people face whenever confronted by 999 and his, tickle fights, if you were to call them that. Not really, laughing a lot, but just more, mellowing out. Tails, saying that he knew this would be a success. And, well, just looking overall overjoyed at the prospect of, Sonic finally, stopping, his just overall attitude. The more and more, visits, 999 had done, towards Sonic. And then came the day, oh the day. Sonic and Amy had finally been allowed to exit their rooms. Seeing that some of these SCP things were allowed to roam freely more than others. Though Sonic, deciding to be with Amy more, because, they seem to be the only ones to truly know each other around. With Sonic really too bored to really pay attention to any of the signs. Accidentally stumbling into a room in which Amy tried to stop him, but he ended up, Amy ended up being too late for that. And had a certain Patchwork SCP not been, there holding a certain other SCP, it would have been too late for the Blue Hedgehog, as he had started to cut himself, speaking about a certain, sheet of music being unable to be completed. And as the Patchwork SCP was able to drag him out of there before, his fate was sealed, even putting a certain ring SCP over his finger, one of his fingers, and using its own work to, well, fix some of the, damage towards Sonic that wouldn't be usually repairable otherwise, due to the nature of said SCP, being SCP-12, if I remember correctly. A certain sheet of music that, well, you should definitely not go towards if you want to stay alive. This combined with the Jade Ring and the Patchwork Bear, well, basically, the Patchwork Bear, I don't really remember the specific numbering or name of the SCP, though I do know that one of the SCPs is the Jade Ring, in which, putting on the Jade Ring plus the work of the Patchwork Bear on Sonic, he was allowed to live. The Foundation literally classifying that as a incident that needed to be, redacted or expunged in order to, keep things secret within the Foundation. And then Tails reminding them that they are no longer in the Foundation, they're under his, thing, and that they will follow his rules from now on what needs to be, whatever needs to be what, or whatever. And eventually it gets to the point where Tails just finds these Foundation people to be unnecessarily annoying. And that with his genius, he has managed to find out ways in which he can deal with certain, SCPs, entities, that, well, most of the Foundation, if not all of the Foundation, have not even gotten close to finding out. So in this sense, Tails feels he no longer needs the Foundation for, most things, if not all things. Can't really do anything about immortality because, it has Dr. Bright's subconscious in there. So in all reality, that means you can't really do anything about Dr. Bright. But, that's dealt with how that's dealt with. And basically meaning that even the O5 Council are met with extreme hostility. Tails saying that this is, a day of celebration. They finally don't no longer have to listen to the SCP Foundation or the O5 Council of the SCP Foundation about shit that doesn't really concern them, considering they had already lost most of their shit already due to some sort of cataclysmic event involving, well, something about day breaking, whatever. But that the fact that the properties of their sun and the properties of the SCP Foundation's, their universe's sun are totally different, means that they won't have to be worrying about day breaking anytime soon or at all. Absolutely proven true, considering, well, actual samples that were able to be gathered from their sun prove that this is absolutely true and that nothing needs to be worried about that. No day breaking at all. Absolutely no day breaking. At all. So, yeah, basically, Tails can basically do whatever he wants to do with, whatever he has, left of said Foundation. And, well, Tails finds that, mostly, if not all SCPs are just bitter because, about how the Foundation decides to deal with things. probably shouldn't have control over. And if anything seems to be out of their control for any moment in time, they could just send out their stronger hitters to deal with the threat post haste. Literally make the threat a temporary. Whatever it was to begin with. Damn neck crack. So yeah, I'm gonna basically leave this off. Yeah, guys, part 2 is done because I literally do not know where to go from here. For now at least. But deuces!